Hi, and welcome to Live with OAIB, a conversation where we discuss critical HR challenges that leaders are facing today. We use our 40 plus years of experience in HR, consulting, and executive coaching to go deep on the topics that are top of mind but often avoided. Thanks for joining. I'm Latanya Roberts, COO, executive coach, and HR strategist. I'm an integrator who uses a holistic approach to solving my clients' problems. So I take their vision, I break them down into bite-sized solutions so that they can actually execute them and turn them into a reality. My goal is really to make sure that we create inclusive cultures where all not only feel, but know that they can belong and can thrive. And that's my superpower. So I'm turning it over to Tawana, who's also joining me.
Good afternoon. My name is Tawana Bagwad. I am the CEO and principal consultant for OAIB. I'm a visionary who believes in the power and promise of equity and help organizations become places where everyone has a deep sense of belonging. I cut through the background noise and coach leaders so they can make the shift into being their authentic selves, rooted in their own personal power. I would say my superpower is helping people become aware of their own blind spots so that they can put the oxygen mask on themselves first. I have to say that again. Put the oxygen mask on themselves first, and then make others feel safe, heard, and inspired. So, what are we talking about today, Latanya?
All right, so today's topic is all about burnout. Now, this is one of those hot topics that's been up there along with DEI over the last 2.5 years. And Tawana, you wrote an article a little while ago that said burnout is real but different now. Tell me a little more about that. What exactly is burnout?
Yeah, I'm hearing, as you well know, this is a buzzword, right? But job burnout is a special type of work related stress in and of itself, right? A state of physical or emotional exhaustion that also involves a sense or reduced accomplishment, right? A loss of personal identity. And that's huge because we continue to talk about how do we bring our authentic self to work, but yet we're experiencing burnout, which is counter, right? So,
Mhm.
burnout isn't a medical diagnosis, or at least I'm not aware of it today. But I will tell you that some experts think that other conditions, such as depression, are behind burnout. So that's why I say this is a topic that we need to talk about because we're hearing it more and more and more every single day.
Absolutely. So, a lot of people don't actually realize when they're experiencing burnout. It's something that kind of bubbles up over time, and then all of a sudden they get that fatigue and they're just done. Tell me, what are some of the symptoms that people should be looking out for as a sign of burnout?
You know what? I would say before I tell you, just highlight a few. One of the things that is critical is for each person, it lives differently,
Mhm.
right? So there's no one, you know, size fit all, if you will. But I would say most times there's anxiety, right? Just concern about getting it all done. You experience headaches, right? I would also tell you people are calling this thing called fog, but you also experience fog where you just can't quite connect the dots as cleaner as you have lack of sleep because you're constantly thinking and not giving yourself a break to turn off. Fatigue is at the top of the list. Just cannot get enough rest. Or if you do rest, you still feel tired and not understanding where it's coming from. Right. And I would also tell you that as I'm talking to people, we're not as positive. We don't have a positive outlook on life. We move into this space of being robotic or I gotta do this or gotta do that. And we can't see it as, work is just a part of the bigger picture called life. We also are seeing reduced performance and productivity. I mean, people are really feeling as if they need to do something different and don't understand what's behind it or driving it. And the feeling is low energy,
Mhm.
anxiety, um, lack of interest is also one that I believe is showing up. What are some of the things you've heard?
So, Tawana, I'm a corporate wellness specialist, but I'm also a certified health coach. And so the way that we kind of look at things is in terms of three different areas, whether there's emotional signs, behavioral signs, or physical signs. And a lot of the symptoms or signs that you spoke about fall into those three categories, right? So from a behavioral standpoint, it's really, or excuse me, emotional standpoint, it's really getting at, how you're feeling inside. So the feeling of failure and self doubt is one. We're really hard on ourselves. We may feel hopeless. We may feel trapped. That lost motivation and those feelings of our detachment, feeling like you're alone in the world, is definitely a sign you start to retreat from everyday things that you're normally used to doing. Some behavioral signs, again, the isolation, the withdrawing, and coping mechanisms, right? So when we were little and we were experiencing something, we go to our comfort foods. A lot of times that's sugar. And then as adults, we experiment a little bit more. So that can look like using alcohol or drugs to cope with dealing with the burnout, a way of you kind of just getting away from everyday life. And then you may also take it out on others, people that you're normally nice to, people that you love. We kind of lash out on them, especially when we
Mhm.
can't do it in the workplace. It shows up in our personal lives. Physically, again, you're feeling that tiredness. You're drained all the time. Even if you've had a lot of sleep the night before, you still wake up and feel like you haven't slept at all. That's a big one. Your body, I like to say all the time, your body kind of knows what's going on before your mind has really caught up with what's going on with you. So frequent headaches are a big sign, especially if you're not someone that usually gets the headaches, or
Mhm.
even muscle pain is another sign.
Thank you. I think that's so important for us because sometimes we discount those things, right? I
Mhm.
got a big project. I got something to do. I got this going on at home. I got to pick up the children. I got to get groceries. I got to cook the dinner. So we do all these things every day and we discount, or as you said, not listen to our body when
Mhm.
it's giving us signs. And I would love to recommend that we really take a pause and look at the things that could be contributing and now living very differently than they have in the past.
Absolutely. And so I know there's some people that are watching us right now. What are some of those signs that you all think, or you have experienced or seen others experience, and kind of you're like, you know what? I think that's burnout. It goes beyond just the fatigue or the everyday stress. It's
Yeah.
a step further. Go ahead and list those down, or any questions that you may have. So we also know that there are some stages of burnout, right? Like it's not just something that happens overnight. There's a build to it. Tawana, tell me a little bit about what some of those stages of burnout are that you've seen.
Yeah, so I think foundationally, if we start out right, we could call it, the honeymoon phase where you
Mhm.
first are excited about something new, call it being married. Well, the same way
Mhm.
you may be excited about a new job or tackling a new task or having some new experience, right? You're productive, you are creative, and then you start to shift, right? So this is where the onset of stress come in. And I need to be super clear, right? We have stress every single day at work, in relationships, etc. So I do want to make sure that I'm drawing a distinction between those things that are just normal stressors that could
Mhm.
also have us to start to dwindle from that new relationship or marriage made the work starts to kick in from someone that's been married 25 years. I understand.
Sure.
Or you at work and you have multiple deadlines that are due at the same time, so the stress is creeping, but it's for a period of time, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just ongoing. You may feel your body is tired because you're not getting as much rest. So I would call that the onset of stress, if you will. But then from there, where I really see people starting to experience, call it this burnout phase,
Mhm.
is where you reach your limit and you can no longer function as you normally could under normal stressful situations, right? So problems at work begin to consume you to the point where you obsessing over them, right? You're at this point in time and are starting to experience some physical things. Like we've heard people talk about feeling numb, experiencing some extreme self doubt, which is what you talked about from that emotional perspective.
Mhm.
Or there's some physical symptoms where you become highly intense, right? You have chronic headaches, and let's not talk about the stomach issues that we're hearing
Mm.
from
Yes.
people, and problems that we're having around there. And friends and family start to also notice your behavior is changing. You're a bit more aggressive, you're a bit more curt or direct or short. And so those things are really giving you signs that there is some burnout occurring. And for those of you that are employers of others, you as co-workers or managers should also be paying attention not only to these signs of people that report to you or team members, but also for yourself. And I would say that last phase is really around this habitual burnout.
Mhm.
And if this is left untreated, burnout can become a part of your everyday life and eventually lead to anxiety and depression. We are hearing so much about people are having to take medicine for
Mhm.
anxiety, in particularly coming out of COVID. And we're definitely going to talk a bit more about that, which is why I named the blog Burnout is Real, but Different Now. So I think as we talk about the different phases, we're seeing
Mhm.
a lot of people move from that honeymoon phase to that habitual burnout phase. And we got to talk about it. We have to make it okay to be
Mhm.
able to express where we are. And so today, my intent is for us to name it, call a
Yes.
thing what a thing is, so that we can begin to address it accordingly. And understand, managers, leaders of organizations, you have a responsibility to support your people.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach to it, right? It's the self, it's the team, it's the organization.
Yeah.
But managers, you have to know your people. You need to know when they're off their game. And then sometimes when you're in that cycle of being going through the burnout, going through the fatigue and the stress, you don't realize it yourself. One of our users says that they get overwhelmed by everyday activities when they're burnt out.
Mhm.
They also get decision fatigue when normally a very decisive person. And when figuring out dinner is suddenly overwhelming, I know I'm burned out. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
that decision fatigue is real, right? So we see
Yeah.
a lot of people that are, famous people. They wear the same clothes over and over again, right? Because they remove the decision point, or they
Mhm.
get a driver so that they cannot think about that next meeting that they're walking into, and they can just focus on preparing for that. So just removing some of those decision points, which one, it helps with productivity, but also can help be a proactive way of preventing the burnout they may come up.
Yeah.
Another person says, ask how exactly are companies supporting burnout of their employees? Oh, such a good question. In so
Mhm.
many ways, right? That we can do that. And we know that it looks differently now in terms of burnout, how it's changed over the years since COVID. So, Twana, before we answer that question, tell me a little bit. Let's talk about what are some of the ways that burnout has changed over the years, and then about what employers can actually do to start to prevent that. What is their role in this?
Yeah, I love this. That was such a great lead in, right? So, first of all, I want to be clear around us understanding what leads to burnout, because I
Mhm.
think that's so important, right? So, workload plays a part. And we can all say that we have more to do and less time to do it. And most of us are wearing multiple hats, therefore, we're probably doing multiple jobs, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not going to even go there to talk about there's always a team member or manager that's not carrying their weight, and you're having to lean in and help, right? There's a perceived lack of control, so much to do, so little time. I can't control the outcome because I'm dependent on this person, that person, and the list goes on and on. And then there is, if I am working as hard as I am, there's a lack of reward and recognition for to even
Mhm.
encourage you to keep going.
Right.
Sometimes I would tell you what leads to burnout is poor relationships, whether they're with one or many team members, whether that is a direct report to your manager or those that are over you, or even because most of us are in global roles too, understanding global context in which we have to manage through and could have strained relationship, or there's a lack of fairness, or
Mhm.
values are mismatched from your individual values to the company. And so I think it's important for us to also look at some of those whys or what
Mhm.
leads to burnout, because I want you to do some self evaluation, right? Self analysis of your current reality and say, are any of these things leading to, right, that next level, if you will, of burnout outside of the normal stresses that
Yeah.
we have in our everyday life? So
Absolutely.
as we dive though into this conversation of what ways have burnout changed over the years, and what can employers do, I just have to pause here to acknowledge that COVID has put an exclamation point on our experiences in work, at home, in life,
Mhm.
and even our everyday interaction. Because for almost 2 years, we experienced isolation. So we had to relearn our social skills. We had to understand that coming back together, there was some hesitancy, like, can I hug? Can I dap? Can I shake hands? Can I even
Mhm.
look someone in the face and be, was that too close? So everyone has been moving with a certain level of apprehension. And I would tell you that COVID also forced us to spend a little bit of time with ourselves, right? And so, as a result of that, there is some interpersonal things as
Mhm.
individuals that we had to shift and now re-enter the world differently from an individual and then as a collective.
Mhm.
So I am challenging the employers to actually take this burnout head on.
Right.
Okay. It is a real thing. So, one of the things that I say is, for the most part, employers are um, are tired. People are tired. Sorry, not employers. Employees are tired,
Mhm.
right? Because as they are at work every single day with their employer, there are certain benefits, there are certain environments
Right.
that the organization should be trying to create. And it's foundationally goes back to our work that we do in DEI. So people are tired because they are trying to treat this like a business problem with strategies and resources. And then you get, voila, it's now fixed. It's going to take a bit more than strategies to really address this issue. It's
Mhm.
not a program or an initiative. And I am well versed and respect and encourage that we have wellness programs, but
Mhm.
they should not be approached as an initiative or a program. Like DEI, it should be built into the grains of your organization.
Mhm.
It should be the way in which you do business. It is, one of the heaviest lifts of our career that I'm seeing right now, where we have to be about our people holistically in so many ways. So we got to work on the inner and the outer to really solve for burnout, which to some degree is caused by our current work environment. And all
Absolutely.
of those things that I mentioned about workload and lack of control, lack of reward, poor relationship, lack of fairness, and also, do we really have a match around our values, with our individual values with the values of the company?
Right. It's about creating this experience of what you want the employee to feel and do at work.
Mm,
Right. So when you're looking at the workload, do you really take a realistic look about how much time it takes to do a task?
yeah.
And that may look different depending on the person doing the task. Someone who's very experienced and having done the work for several years should be able to do the work in a shorter amount of time than someone who's brand new to the job. Are you creating a relationship where it's more of a mentoring and coaching relationship versus someone who's working a bit more independently or as
Right.
a team lead? All these things take into consideration. Also, when you put that inclusivity lens on there, right?
Hmm.
It's, are you taking into consideration the things that are going on with that person? If you're aware of some of their cultural norms, whether it's they're dealing with a religious holiday or religious experience, hey, things may need to change around certain times of the year, right? Or if you are dealing with a project that is very labor intensive at certain phases of that project manager, are you taking that into consideration when you're dispersing the workload amongst your team? There's a lot of stuff that we can take into consideration as we're designing. Also, making sure that you're building in time to interact. And we have those EAP programs and all of these benefits. Do your people know the benefits that are available to them? And have the benefits been assessed to make sure that they're keeping up with the needs of the organization today? And it doesn't have to be a every year type of thing, but it definitely should be every 2 to 3 years. So are there mental health benefits? Are they accessible? Are people looking and being encouraged to actually do that preventative medicine where they're going in and they're making time to get their annual physicals? They're looking at their blood pressure. We're encouraging healthy initiatives. Or even when you plan an event, simple things about making sure that there are adequate breaks and the food. Are we just going to the simple button and bringing in all the pastries and the sugary things and the sandwiches? Or are we creating healthy options for those snacks and those meal breaks in there as well? So there's a lot of stuff that you can do from an employer standpoint, and even your performance management and your rewards and recognition. There's a lot of things that are involved there that can actually help to promote more of that work life harmony and be more proactive in preventing burnout.
I love that. I think those are so important points. And particularly, we know that most employees do not look at their benefits to that degree until they're in need,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I would encourage us to be a bit more proactive, given that we know that this is real.
Right.
Um, and of course, partnering with your manager, but also the HR department to also bring these things to life, right? And
Mhm.
I am by no means discouraging from having initiatives and programs. That's how we get things kicked off. But then how do they become ingrained? One way to do that is to say that we are a company that support, healthy choices. So
Mhm.
when we do have events, that we won't bring in, certain items because we promote healthy choices and events. So those are the types of things that an employer can do to begin to shift to this
Mhm.
being a part of their culture. And it becomes the norm versus the exceptions.
Right. Right. So we talk about the employer and what they can do. Let's talk about the employee because you have a role in this as well, right? So
Yes.
when you start to experience burnout, there is a lot of things that you can actually do to kind of take your control back. Tawana, what are some of the things that you would advise someone to do as they're starting to feel like maybe they're suffering from burnout? What should they do?
Yeah, so there's many things that come to mind for me, but I would ask you to ask your friends or someone that you trust. Have you seen a difference in me? Because sometimes you might need to give them permission to share them saying, yeah, you've been a little intense, right?
Mhm.
And you're
Mhm.
like, and I don't know what's driving that, but I love you, I care about you. And that could open up a conversation for you to first do some self-evaluating of your current reality, how you're feeling, get more in touch with your feelings versus writing them off to be, oh, that's just because of stress. Oh, that's just because of the season. Oh, that's just because, right? So there's a
Mhm.
discounting that we naturally do to ourselves to just muster through or manage through certain situations and circumstances, which we look up a year later and they haven't gone away, and we're not as mentally healthy or physically healthy as we thought. The other thing I would say is another sign is weight gain, and to some degree, weight loss. So,
Mhm.
have there been some changes in your weight? These are signs that are critical to you. But how about establishing some routine that will allow you to gain back some control in your life, right? Versus kind of being scattered or all over in your movement. I would also say, think of prioritizing your work in your day. What are the things that are most critical for me to get done? And we all know that there's a difference between what's important, right? And what's critical for us to get done versus when you're in a state of burnout, everything has to get done because you're looking for that relief. And I would also say be okay with asking for help. We don't want to ask for help. We want to get it all done so we can be sure that it's done the way that we like it and how we like it. But there are so many people, team members, your manager, either for that matter, or family members that want to support you, that actually have your best interests at heart. And it's super important to have a plan. Got
Mhm.
to have a plan, and do that plan in bite size, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day plan. Those are things that can help you get focused. Latanya, anything come to mind for you?
Absolutely. I love that you're talking about planning. So planning is it's a way of practicing time management, right? So first start out with planning to plan. Set
Mm,
aside time to actually write down, well, what are your goals? What are those must-have activities? And then break them down into, as you mentioned, those bite-sized pieces. What do I need to, once you have your yearly and you broke it down to quarterly and monthly, okay, so let's take it a step further. What are those weekly things that I need to do? Are there daily actions that will keep me moving towards what it is that I'm hoping to accomplish, right? Creating that self efficacy, making sure that I can actually do what I said I was going to do. And there's comfort in that. Checking off the box, you get a little win, a little, some endorphins there. So that can help you kind of pull out of that funk. The other thing I would say is we always hear about this morning routine. And your
mm,
morning routine doesn't have to be overly complicated. It can be just you starting off your day with making time for you before you allow the rest of the world to come in and start disrupting the plan that you set out, right? So that can look like meditation or some type of spiritual practice. And I don't mean religion, I mean a spiritual practice. It doesn't have to relate to religion. Maybe you do some affirmations. Maybe you're your own hype person and you listen to music. It's just whatever you do to get you in that right mindset. Eating a healthy breakfast. That looks like incorporating more protein versus less sugar and not a lot of sugar into your morning. That's actually going to help you generate a lot more energy. It's going to keep you more awake, a little bit more focused, and you start to reduce that afternoon slump where you're like, oh, I really need a nap. And then exercise. And exercise, again, talk to your doctor here, but exercise can be as simple as, hey, I took a walk. If you have a dog or a pet, extend that walk a little bit. Maybe you can, a lot of us got a Peloton. I'm one of them. So hop on that bike for a few minutes while you're watching the news in the morning and just generate a little bit more exercise in your life. But I will say a great day starts the night before. So just as important as it is to have a morning routine, you want to have a great night routine too. And that starts before you go to sleep. So, what is your wind down practice? A lot of us have heard that you should definitely turn off the electronics at least an hour before you get into, you prepare to go to sleep, right? So, turn off those lights. Maybe you read a book. What is it that you need to do to get your brain to start shutting down? If you're somebody that lays awake at night and you start to go through that mental to-do list, put a notebook beside your bed and start writing everything down and do that brain dump so that you can actually be empty, heart and mind clear before you go to sleep. And then
yeah.
make sure that you're going to sleep and getting adequate sleep. 6 to 8 hours a night. What is your sleep number? Mine is 7. I know if I don't get at least 7 hours a day, the next day is going to be a little challenging, right? So I try to get close to 7 as possible, but build that in. And our wonderful phones that we're on all day long, they actually are tools that we can use to make sure that we stay on track. So I would definitely add that. And that's a few ways that you can start to incorporate a little bit more power or bring back the power back in your life.
So, as we wrap up, how
Mhm.
can people connect with us?
Oh gosh, well, so many ways. But first, I do want to say there's a couple of comments in here. A great point. We didn't get to burnout overnight. Absolutely, we won't be rebalanced overnight either. Definitely. So start to notice some of those signs. And someone else said, "Thank you, Tawana and Latanya. I have to leave now." Well, we hope you come back and watch the replay and join us every first and third Tuesday, where we'll be talking about another topic. So you all can connect with us, of course, by going to our website. That's oaib.org. Again, that's oaib.org. Leave us a little message. You can, there is a little area where you can contact us that will send us an email. You can hop into our private messages here on LinkedIn. We love to hear from you. We're always looking for new ways to partner or just hear, what's top of mind. And of course, if there's anything that spurred any thought as we were going through today's chat, leave us a comment. What's coming to mind for you? How are you handling burnout? How are you overcoming it? How are you preventing it? Is there another topic that you'd love for us to explore at a later date? We want to hear back from you all.
So,
Anything
as
else?
we close out, yeah, as we close out, I just would say, please don't underestimate our transition from out of COVID. There has been a lot of mental and physical, spiritual, emotional adjustments that we have had to make. And we're entering an environment where we have more to do with less. So I
Mhm.
would encourage you to pay attention to your body. It is giving you all the signs. And don't be afraid to ask for help. There is help available to you through your benefits, through coaching, through many social outlets. There's a ton of different programs that are out there that are actually free. And I
Mhm.
would say social groups that you can join. But we would love to support you and your organization in any way that we can. And thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you and hearing any other comments that you may have at our next live.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day on purpose.
Bye.
Bye.